Donald Trump continues to maintain a lead over Biden in the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania. What is up, people of the internet? It is me, Real American, back in with a new video, and today it is time to talk about the 2024 presidential election because Pennsylvania is arguably the most important battleground state of the 2024 election. Obviously, most people agree that, yeah, whoever wins Pennsylvania is more than likely going to win the presidency. Well, a brand new poll out of Pennsylvania was just released, and Donald Trump maintains a lead over Joe Biden. And it is a small lead, but this same pollster back in 2020 said that Trump was going to lose Pennsylvania by like 5 to 6 points. Well, now they have Trump outright winning Pennsylvania over Biden. Now, before we continue with today's video, I hope you enjoy these type of videos. If you do, smash the like button down below, subscribe, share with your friends, hit that little bell, follow the social media accounts in the description down below, and of course, join the channel today. Again, folks, all support is greatly appreciated, and yeah. Now, I do want to be clear that I am not saying for 100% certainty that Trump is going to win Pennsylvania, but the fact that Marist, which you can argue is one of the most Democrat-biased pollsters out there, is now showing Trump winning the state. Like, we're not talking about a massive lead, but this same pollster back in 2020 missed the mark considerably. But now they actually have Trump winning over Biden in a state that most people can agree to is a must-win for both candidates. So let's get into it. In Pennsylvania, State President Joe Biden narrowly won over former President Trump in 2020. Only 2 points separate the candidates among registered voters statewide. Support for RFK Jr., Cornel West, and Jill Stein is in single digits. Chase Oliver receives less than 1%. In contrast, Democratic incumbent Bob Casey leads his Republican opponent, David McCormick, by 6 points. Trump and Biden are competitive among Pennsylvania registered voters, including those who are undecided yet leaning towards a candidate. Kennedy receives 3%, Cornel West receives 1%, as does Jill Stein. Chase Oliver receives less than 1% of the vote, which I find it very strange that Jill Stein, Cornel West, and even Kennedy, they combined for like 5% of the vote. If you include Chase Oliver, maybe 6%, but you would think with every other poll we've seen, out of not just Pennsylvania, but Wisconsin, Michigan, hell, at the national level, you would think the third-party vote share would be closer to 10% at the bare minimum. So despite RFK and others being on the poll, they're only getting 6%. So the argument that, well, actually, the independents are the reason that Biden is losing, that could still be true, but Trump's already at 47%. Even with RFK on the ballot, even with Jill Stein on the ballot, he's cracking 47%. Which is what? 1 point less than 2020? That really shows that even if RFK, Jill Stein, Cornel West, whoever's not on the ballot, and every single undecided, decides for either Trump or Biden, more than likely, Trump is going to be above where he was in 2020. He's probably going to crack 50%. In that scenario, how can he lose? Mathematically speaking, he can't lose if he gets 50% of the vote. He just can't. Again, I assume that if RFK and others somehow don't get on the ballot, those voters, the majority of them vote for Biden. But who's to say that they're going to actually vote? Who's to say that some of them are not going to vote for Trump? And you don't know what the undecided voters, if they are Republicans, if they're, Nikki Haley voters that are skeptical, who knows? You don't know who these undecideds are. There could be a lot of Republicans that are still, hesitant to support Trump, but at the end of the day, more than likely they're going to back him. Among independents, Trump receives 42% to 40% for Biden. Kennedy garners 8%, with West and Stein each receiving 3%. In the 2020 exit poll, Biden carried independents 52% to 44% for Trump. In other words, yet another data point that demonstrates that, yeah, Trump is already reaching that vote share he got back in 2020. He's receiving 42% of the independent vote. It also confirms that, more than likely, the independent vote, if, say, Kennedy or someone else isn't on the ballot, which I don't think you could say every independent's be kicked off the ballot. Maybe like Stein or West, but let's just assume that actually happens. Do you really think every single one of those independents are just going to vote for Biden? A majority could, but the math needed for Biden to win Pennsylvania, he needs to win, like, what, 80% of the undecided vote in that scenario? Is it possible? Maybe. But the more you look at this poll, the more you realize, okay, even with a magical swing of all the undecideds, even like 90% of them, Biden has a big problem here mathematically. While still strong, Biden has lost his formidable support among black voters. 68% break for Biden and 23% for Trump. Biden handily won the support of most black voters in the 2020 election, 92% to 7% for Trump. Yeah. Biden is not even cracking 70% with the black vote. While in 2020, he got 92%. Now, will this hold? Maybe not. I still think at the end of the day, Biden does slightly better than polling suggests with black voters. But the fact that we're even talking about Trump possibly cracking 20% with black voters is crazy. It's a legitimate possibility. If that does happen, this 45% for Biden might be an overstatement. Yeah, I said that. Because in Pennsylvania, if Trump is getting triple his vote share with black voters, there's no way in hell Biden could get more than like 45% of the vote. So this top line would actually be a best case scenario of him maybe cracking 45%. That's assuming he does the exact same with independents, white voters, which I don't think he is. It sounds like he's doing just terrible with every other group. Biden has lost support among voters under the age of 45. Biden got 46% and Trump got 44%. Back in 2020, the same age group voted for Biden by over 24 points. Yeah. So that means if every single voter under the age of 45 breaks for Biden by some miracle, that's impossible, but let's say it happens. It doesn't matter in that scenario. Trump would have done 10 to 20 points better with these voters. No matter what happens, he's already at 44%. Yet, Trump's advantage among older voters has evaporated. He carried voters 45 or older by 12 points in 2020. Now, 3 percentage points separate Trump and Biden among this group. Yeah, so Trump is doing worse with the older vote while doing way better with the younger vote. So if you assume that every single young voter is going to break for Biden, wouldn't you say the same thing about the older vote? Wouldn't you? They won't. Democrats won't admit it. They won't admit that Biden is in deep trouble. But the fact that Trump is doing this good with young people, and in fact, he still is holding a lead with older voters. It's small, but you should assume that he does win at least a chunk of these undecided voters, especially if they're above 45. Now, I'm not saying every single one of them vote for Trump, but you have to say the same thing about the younger vote. So either way, you can't spin this and say it's actually good news for Biden that he's at 45% with older people. Yeah, it's better than it was in 2020, but it's not the same improvement as Trump's is. Because Trump's improvement for sure is 10 to 20 points better with those voters. With Biden, he's doing better, but it's not a 30-point overperformance or even like a 20-point overperformance. It's like, what, a 10-point boost? Compare that with Trump. As of now, he's doing 22 points better with young people. Maybe a 10-point bump with older people. That might be enough to counteract some of that. But if you assume the undecideds, at least a chunk of them vote for Trump, that's why it becomes a problem for Biden, because mathematically, he's not going to be able to carry the old vote, and his young vote margin is not big enough. It just isn't. He can't win with just a 10-point victory with those voters. A majority of Pennsylvania residents think that they and their families were better off during Trump's presidency, 54%, than during Biden's term, 43%. Yeah, a majority, not just, 1% more. Nope. In a direct comparison between Trump's presidency and Biden's presidency, the majority said Trump's presidency was better. So theoretically, wouldn't you think, hey, wait a minute. If the majority of the undecided said, hey, maybe Trump's presidency was better, wouldn't they break for Trump? You would think so, because that's just common sense that if people think Trump was better, they may not like him, but if they think he's overall a better president, you would think these people would break for Trump over Biden. That just seems like common sense. Majorities of Pennsylvania residents have negative impressions of Biden and Trump. 55% have an unfavorable view of Biden. Yeah, 55%. While 53% of adults statewide have an unfavorable view of Trump. Yeah. This same question, back in 2020, Biden won it by like 20 points. He had a net favorability of like 10 points or whatever, and Trump's is -10. Now, Trump actually has a better favorability than Biden. And you could argue this is a big reason for why Biden won. The fact that he had a good favorability, especially compared to Trump. Trump's favorability was what, like 42%? So Trump's has stayed virtually the same. It might have gone down a little bit, but it appears it's actually going up at some polling. Well, Biden's has completely crashed. His numbers have tanked so bad that Trump has better numbers than Biden on a question that Trump has always been terrible on. He never has good favorability numbers because people don't like Trump's personality. That's a fact. That's why him actually having better numbers than Biden is terrible for him, because that's another sign that, hey, maybe these voters, they really are sick of Biden and they're not going to vote for him. No matter what happens, they're just going to say, screw it. I'm going to stick with Trump. A majority of residents think Trump would better handle the economy than Biden, which is just bad. Same thing with the immigration. However, a majority of Pennsylvania residents say Biden would better handle the abortion issue. Congratulations. You won the one issue that Democrats banked their entire campaign on by what? You won it by 6 points or whatever? This same issue back in 2022 was like D plus 50. And you might be saying, well, immigration and the economy should be more Republican. Fine, but the difference is Biden is getting crushed on the two most important issues. Hell, preserving democracy is tied. More than 3 in 10 Pennsylvania residents say inflation is top of mind when thinking about November's election. Preserving democracy comes in second with 30%, followed by immigration 16%, and abortion at 10%. So even in this poll that magically found 30% of voters saying, yeah, preserving democracy is the number one issue, number one issue. Even with that in mind, and immigration only at 16%, this poll found Trump winning over Biden by 2 points. And Trump is still winning over voters with the issue of the economy, with immigration, with even preserving democracy. He's tied. A majority of Biden supporters say preserving democracy is top of mind when thinking about November's election. So even the number 2 issue being democracy, it seems like it's nothing but partisan Democrats saying, yeah, we have to preserve democracy. That's the number 1 issue. It doesn't sound like the independent voters saying, yeah, preserving democracy is number 1, because 57% of Biden supporters said, yeah, preserving democracy, that's obviously the most important issue. So if it's Biden supporters saying it's democracy is the number 1 issue, do you really think that preserving democracy matters to the average independent? No, they care about inflation. They care about immigration. Hell, they might care more about abortion than the issue of democracy. So even the one part of the poll that you might say is good news for Biden, it really isn't. It's being inflated by his supporters. Either way, the more you look at this poll, the more you realize that the top line more than likely is going to hold. Like, things could change. We are in June with a 2-point lead. I understand things could change. This is the same pollster that back in 2020 said Biden was going to win Pennsylvania by like 5 points or whatever. So if they usually oversample Democrats, especially in presidential years, why would that magically stop in 2020? Even if we assume that, polling is spot on here. Let's assume that, okay, the polling is going to be perfect. That even a 1-point miss in favor of Biden, Trump would still carry Pennsylvania by a point. Either way, folks, things could change. The polling has been all over the place in, like, Pennsylvania, for example. Some polls have it very close. Some have it actually a blowout. I do think it's going to be a close election, but when even Marist is admitting, Trump is currently winning Pennsylvania with 47% of the vote. And this poll is post-conviction, so you can't even use the argument of, well, actually, the polling could be off because of the conviction. This was a week after the guilty verdict. So you can't use that as an excuse. This poll is just overall good news for Trump. Anyways, folks, thank you so much for watching. If you guys did enjoy this video, smash the like button down below, subscribe, share with your friends, hit that little bell, follow the social media accounts in the description down below, and of course, join the channel today. Godspeed to all of you.